Amber, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Carolyn.
It's an exciting day here in Los Angeles.
It's a cold day here in Los Angeles.
Fantastic. I see lots and lots of people. This is wonderful. We will start at exactly 11:30 for everybody.
I renamed myself.
There she is.
All right, we got one more minute.
Exactly.
This is always like I experience the waiting, you know, how when everyone just is in the elevator, watching the numbers.
That's right.
Waiting for their floor.
Be on my phone.
Right? Totally.
I don't see everybody.
All right, let's do this, Amy Ruby.
Okay. All right, everybody. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Ruby. I'm the director of the CFJ Coaching Success School here in Los Angeles, California, and welcome to the 2020 Your Best Year Ever webinar. I'm going to walk you through some logistics before we get started, so support the call today. If you'd like to be coached on the call today, you go to the bottom of the screen and you click on, I think it's the Manage the Participants. And then you go over to your name wherever you see it, and you should be able to click and then click on Raise Your Hand. That's going to support us in knowing if you'd like to be called on for the coaching. And just so you know, Carolyn is going to be prioritizing people who did the pre-work. And then if we get through everybody who's done that, then she'll open it up to people if you didn't get a chance to do it. So we just want to give you the heads up about that. And then also, everybody was muted upon entry. So if you're called on to be coached, you want to scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom window, and you'll see in the left-hand corner, it'll say mute. You want to unclick that, and that will give you your, if you don't know how to use Zoom, that's what you click in order to, we'll be able to hear you. Great, so that's all for logistics. So let's get the webinar started. So I want to introduce you to Carolyn Freyer-Jones, who's the founder and lead faculty member of the CFJ Coaching Success School. And joining her on the call today is Amber Kryzs, who is our other lead faculty member. So take it away, Carolyn and Amber.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Amy Ruby, our fabulous director. Thank you for that. So I just want to reiterate. So first of all, bravo. I received a lot of responses that people did the pre-work, which is amazing, right? Like that's a big win right there. So I'm going to start with those. Some people who did the pre-work were very transparent and said, hey, you could work with me. That would be great. Some people didn't. So for the first round, if your hand is, raise your hand if you did the pre-work and you're okay with me calling on you and doing some work together. But we're going to start more generally because it's a good conversation to be in. Like, first of all, let me just say to all of you, because Amber and Amy and I were talking about this yesterday, the fact that you're here right now today, whether you're watching the recording or right now live, is a big win. I was also talking about this with Devin Bandison, one of the coaches who teaches at the school, and he said, whoever's there, they're already ahead of the game, right? They're already saying, I'm preparing. I'm going to look and see, and I'm going to think about what I want, and I'm going to look at what I did this year. And there are so many coaches who frankly kind of are doing this right now. Like, la, 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 la. No, I don't want to think about what I made. And I definitely don't want to think about what I want to make. That's way too uncomfortable. So this is a win. if the only thing you do is this webinar and use 2 things from it, you're already way ahead in your year. Do you want to say anything about that, Amber?
Well, I mean, other than just saying absolutely, because I shared about this recently, how we close this year really sets the foundation for our next year. And there are people, I feel like, who get to this point that are like, well, I did my best, like, well, whatever.
Right.
And to really slow down and go, okay, wait a minute, knowing that I'm laying the groundwork for 2020 right now.
Right.
So what do I want in 2020 that will help me solidify this foundation? I just think that's awesome.
Yeah. Agreed. And I want to talk a little bit about that because there were amazing themes in the responses. There were amazing themes, and I'm going to highlight some of those, and then we'll get into some actual coaching. So, not surprising that the answer that had a lot of content for people was, given you know yourself best, what is going to get in your way from creating this number you said that you want? And the themes were things like not wanting to put myself out there, not taking action, being uncomfortable with sharing about what I do, letting myself get distracted. I would say those are like the top 5. There are probably subversions of that, but they're all in the neighborhood of I will let this not be a priority. I will let my own discomfort get in front of me, and that will drive whether or not I take action, right? So there's all subheads under there, which we could use, right? Like, distractions from my children, right? Oh, I'm too busy taking care of them, or distractions in my life, or Facebook. Somebody did right, like bright, shiny objects, social media, like things that get in the way of us sitting our butts down and doing work. So first of all, such willingness, like so much honesty. And that's number 1, the most important thing, that you're honest with yourself. Even if you didn't do the pre-work and you're here watching, that you get honest. You know yourself best. What is going to get in the way of you creating what you say you want? We all have it. We all have our own unique ways of getting in our own way. So you know it. And what I want to start with talking about, this is something we were talking about yesterday, is the idea of this being a job. Because we don't really hear that very often, right? Like it is a job. It's a job. So when we, in Steve Chandler's words, who's, we all know, the godfather of coaching, he also teaches at my school, and he has been my coach for a really long time, too long. I won't tell you how long. But he talks about this in this particular way, which I think is really important. Like, do you show up for work? Do you show up for work? Amber and Amy and I were talking yesterday. Like, if I worked in a place where they made widgets, and my job was to put the round piece on the round peg, and I had to do that, for 5 hours a day, I wouldn't walk away from the machine, right? It'd be like Lucy and Ethel. Do you remember that episode of where they're eating the chocolates? Like the machine starts to move and they're like missing it. It's like, in a way, when we walk away from the conveyor belt, the job doesn't get done. It just doesn't get done. And in some ways, I feel badly that I'm sort of this, I feel like I'm a buzzkill in the profession, because I talk about it like this. Like, I don't mean to be a buzzkill. I love this profession, but I don't love the illusionary nature of how people sometimes talk about this profession, right? Like, we see it on Facebook, and we see, just people who look so amazingly well put together, and everything's, lovely. And it seems like their practice is just manifesting, people upon people. And it doesn't seem like they have a job. But I have a job, and Amber has a job, and Amy has a job, and everybody who was in the coaching school last year, the CFJ Coaching School, we talked about this. You have a job to do. So I don't know if it's helpful. And maybe someone's going to say to me, this is the worst webinar I've ever participated in. This is so like not like, I wish I had balloons and streamers. We should have done that. We totally should have had like, Happy New Year. And guess what? You have a job. So our job is to go to work. We go to work. If we had another job, which many of you already do, or some of you left careers, you didn't just not show up. Like even on the days for me when I was working in a full-time job, of course, like everyone, if you've watched the show The Office, do you remember there's an episode about being a time thief, right? People are time thieves at their jobs, right? They go like, oh, let me go and like call my mom while I'm at work. So I'm stealing time from my job. So I had my share of being a time thief, right? However, I didn't not show up physically and I did my job, right? And it mattered to me that I did my job well. And this is the same. It's like when you are thinking, well, I don't really want to send an email today, and I don't really want to try to have conversations on my calendar, try this, like write down right now that really what you're saying is, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go do my job. Maybe that will be a wake up. Like, wait a second, I didn't say that. I don't mean that I don't want to do my job, because that's the truth, right? Like, I don't want to do my job. Now we have all sorts of discomfort we're going to talk about today. Like, this is a job that requires action, and it requires outreach and connection, right? It's not all going to come towards us. It's just not. The most successful coaches I know, including myself, Amber, Steve Chandler, Stephen McGee, Devin Vandison, they still create their own clients from scratch. They do, because they love it. Like, in a way, that's the most empowering thing we can do, is go, who is in my world that I would like to serve? It's one of the most powerful things we can do. Not the easiest, and sometimes not the most fun at first, but the most powerful. So I'm going to open it up in a minute, but I want to see if Amber has anything she wants to add to that. Maybe there's a story, Amber, you have about what it felt like for you when the reality of this is a job came in.
You know, for me, because I had started more in the online path. And so that as a job, it felt very busy. Like there's always something, like you feel behind. You wake up in the morning and there's already 50 things that you're supposed to do that you didn't do. If it's post to Instagram or post to Facebook or get this blog post written or put the videos together for this online program, it just seemed like never ending. And so, and I was such a doer. Like I had no problem actually being in action. I just didn't know the most effective action to be taking. And so when it shifted to this idea of conversations and generating conversations on the calendar. Now, I'm not going to lie. I think part of the reason I was drawn to online was because I was terrified of the intimacy of individual conversations. And it felt, I just did an audio about this recently. I haven't shared it yet, but it felt like suddenly I was responsible for the results that this person said they wanted. Like that was the misunderstanding going on inside of me. And so if I was leading an online program or doing a group, it felt like, that's less responsibility on my part. So when I did shift into one-on-one, in a way that was like the big white flag of surrender, because I had for 2 years just really struggled, and ultimately the feedback from my life was it's time to do something different. And so I was so committed. I mean, I love this conversation because every single person who goes through the school, every single person who's starting off as a coach, we are asked to sacrifice our one identity in order to create this new identity. And so we are asked to really sacrifice our small self fears in order to have the bigger life or the bigger mission that we're going for. And getting out of debt and actually making money was a pretty big calling for me. So I was like, I'll just show up for work. Like, what do I need to do? I need to talk to people. Great. I'll talk to people.
Right.
That was sort of my journey.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I think it's important to know, I think it's important for everybody to know, everybody who wrote their answers, everybody had a number, by the way. There was nobody out of like the, I don't know, 40 plus responses I got. Nobody was like, I don't want to make money. Nobody was like, I don't have a number. I don't care. Nobody. Right? So that tells us something. It tells us that there's something, every coach, whether you're beginning, middle, or way down the line, they want something, right? Money is important in their lives to whatever degree, right? It's just a lever, it's just a shovel, but most of us require it for our lives to varying degrees. So everybody wrote a number. And the bulk of the numbers, I would say, were in the range of, let's say, pretty 50% believable. Some were not. Some people had, I've made nothing, right? I've made nothing as a professional coach, and I want to make a large number. Now, some may be thinking, well, I have this professional background, and that will help. And that could be true. So it's not a given that it doesn't mean because you haven't made any money as a coach, you can't make a lot of money in 2020. It's not a rule. And for those of you that send in an answer that you're going from, let's say, 0 or almost nothing, and your number jumped by, let's say triple and above, right? No, there's a correlation. There's a correlation between the amount we want to make and the amount we show up to work. There's a correlation. The years that I have made more money, especially in the beginning, I was showing up for work a lot. Michelle Bauman was showing up for work a lot. I mean, I share this story often. I mean, I was coaching at night on my bathroom floor in my 1-bedroom apartment. I was coaching in my carport down back. I was coaching on my lunch hour. And then when I left my full-time job, I mean, Michelle and I each, when we each left our jobs, we were like looking at our calendars going, all right, how many conversations are you going to get on your calendar this week? And we'd be like, okay, I'm going for 5. I'm going for 6. We didn't always hit that number, but it was like, we were in it. We were like, okay, who are we going to write to? Who are we going to write to? And by the way, we were each of us profoundly uncomfortable. Like, it was never like, this is so easy to write to this person. It was always like, oh, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm pushy, or they're not going to like it? Those thoughts are part of this territory. So anyone who's like, well, I'm going to wait till those thoughts are gone. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait. I am going to handle those thoughts, and then I'm going to do it. You're going to be waiting a really long time. There's a coach that I've been coaching for a while, and they hit 6 figures. Now, this is someone whose trajectory, given their lives, was like, it was appropriate that it took some time, right? It just took some time, and everybody's trajectory is different. This is a person I've looked at all their emails. I've looked at all their invitations. I've looked at maybe almost every communication. They still have discomfort. See, I want to say to everyone, if you think there's a hack, like, is there a hack to eliminate discomfort? There isn't. There really isn't. Like, that's not even a life hack, frankly, I would want, because I think part of life includes discomfort. Right? It just does. I don't care whether it's about your job, it's about your family, it's about your relationship. Life isn't designed to be like sweet and easy all the time. It's just not. So I want to encourage people to drop the idea that this should be sweet and easy. Stephen McGee said something to me recently, which I loved. He's like, when did easy get so popular? I love that. When did easy become so popular? So let's make easy unpopular, and let's make going to work and showing up and sending out emails really popular. Let's make getting messy popular. Why not? Like, that could be our objective for 2020, to make getting messy popular, to make showing up popular, to make going to work popular, and make extending ourselves to people popular. That's all we're doing. That's what we're in the game of, extending. What did someone say? I blame it on the Staples. What does it say?
Easy button.
Easy button. It's true. That's very funny. Right. So let's open it up. So we're going to open it up. I see hands raised. Let's start. Let's see. Andrew, I'm going to unmute you. Andrew De La Roca, I'm going to unmute you. And you wrote to me recently.
Yes. Hi. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We spoke about a month ago, so
Yeah.
It's good to see you again. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had put my hand up to volunteer, to be coached around what I had written. So I don't know if that's what phase
Well,
of the
it's up
webinar
to
we're in
you.
right now.
Like,
Okay.
Is there something specific in what you wrote that you want to get some coaching around, and feel free to share it, or if there's something new based on what I said?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the showing up to work, which I do love. That idea. It's like when you show up to work, what do you do?
Ooh,
You
good.
know, and that trips me up a lot.
It does.
It's like I want to get the conversations on. It's like filling the calendar with the conversations. I'll coach all day long, every day. I love it. You know, filling the calendar up with conversations, or even getting one new person in a conversation, 4 times a week. It's daunting. And so I just don't, I show up to work, but then I don't know what I'm working on.
I get it. So first of all, people can raise their hands if they have similar feelings and experiences. You can just raise your hand. I think, look, it's so common, Andrew. So I really want you to know that you're not alone, right? I want to slow something down. You said, is that okay?
Sure.
You said it's daunting,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big word, right? Not it's daunting, because you were a teacher, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And weren't you English? Were you English teacher?
Yeah, I was an English teacher. Correct.
So daunting, nice vocabulary. Can you say more about that?
Daunting, huh? Yeah, I guess it is a big word. Maybe it's you wake up and you see this big thing in front of you, like building this entire business, and you're like, what the hell? How the hell am I going to get there?
Right.
That's what I mean by daunting.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
So I want to challenge you, like, that it doesn't have to, like, daunting is a way of setting it up, which I wouldn't want to do that either, by the way. If I had to do that, like, when I started, my thought was like, oh man, I got this whole business to build. If Michelle and I had ever had that, we would have been like, bye. I want to challenge you to really pull back from that kind of idea and move it more into the realm of, well, what would it be like if I spent 5% of my time today reaching out to 1 or 2 people? Mm-hmm. Like, to really pull it back from, you don't have to build a whole business, right? Mm-hmm. That's really it's not even doable. Mm-hmm. And it's not possible. So what would it be like to be like, all right, my job today is to reach out to 1 person. Just 1.
Yeah.
And make a connection.
And then I start thinking, well, who is that person?
Well, I'll tell
you. Who do I reach out to? And
right.
And just like a little background, after going through certification and everything, I felt like I'd reached out to everybody to get my clients for certification. Right?
Oh, right. Your hours, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, I've already kind of been putting myself out there.
Let me ask you a question. Have you reached out to former colleagues that you taught alongside?
Yeah, I mean, so many of them ended up being my coachees.
And are you still working with them as part of that?
No, I'm not. What's that?
Well, it's like anytime we've coached someone, there's a greater opportunity, because they've been coached by you, that they might want to talk with you again.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Especially if they had a good experience.
Yeah.
And I want to say something before you jump ahead, and then you can tell me. See, I'll give you a good example. This to me is a great example of someone who did something, and something happened as a result that was to the coach, it was unexpected. So this is a coach who's already enrolled in the school right now for this coming year. And they went to some event with their child that was a big deal. And the parent was sort of watching this thing happen with all the kids and the person running it and how they handled it. And the parent was really struck by the person's level of enthusiasm for their work, how they worked with the kids. I mean, they were really taken with them. And the only thing they did is they wrote an email that was just an incredible email of acknowledgement. It was like, I was there, I saw what you did. I'm so moved by the level of enthusiasm you bring to your work. It like was so meaningful to me to watch that. And I just want you to know that I saw you and I admire it. It was like it was that. And that was it, nothing. The person wrote back like the next day and was like, I cannot even tell you how meaningful your email was. The timing of that email is unbelievable to me because I'd been questioning, and this was someone who's in a teaching role, Andrew, so you can relate, right? They were like, I was questioning whether or not, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? And am I making a difference? And does it matter? And at the very end of the person's response, they wrote, I looked at your website and, I don't know, but I might want to reach out to you sometime. Would that be okay? And then the coach went on to the school Facebook page, of course, and told us about it. And then, they were like, well, what do I do? Like, what do I do?
Right.
Like, what do I do? And I said, first of all, like, just acknowledge the person, right? Like, acknowledge their response. And all you need to do right now is send them something. Send them a resource that you think would be meaningful to them. This is the beginning, right, of a relationship. It's just a relationship. So that's really all we're doing. Like, that's not, now another coach, not me, and certainly not in the school, but someone who wasn't being coached might jump and be like, we should talk, right? Like, let's get on the phone.
Yep.
And
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, no, right? Because we don't want to do that with someone. That's just too much too soon. So I'm sharing all this with you, Andrew, because I know, I get that you might be staying in your house a little bit too much, but there are people who I'm sure show up for you that you're like, wow, look at that person do their job.
Yeah.
You were involved with principals. You went to trainings. You did all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
How often are those people getting acknowledged?
No, very rarely, I would say. Very rarely. Yeah.
If you said, all right, in the month of December, I'm going to make a list of 10 people that I was moved by in my old professional life, and I'm going to write to them, and I'm just going to acknowledge them. I'm going to say, I saw you. I want you to know you made a difference. If you did that every day, one person a day for the month of December, things would start to happen, Andrew.
All right, I'll do that. I'll take it. I did one last week, so I'm one down.
All right.
But all right, I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's part of it. Like, and I get it.
Yeah.
Everyone, I'm sure the next person I talk to, some of it is like, well, when I show up for work, what do I do? And Steve Chandler tells this story that Steve Hardison used to be like, when he would go get coached by Steve Hardison would be like, I don't know, who do I talk to? Steve Hardison would be like, give me your computer. And they would look at his last 3 months of emails that he received. And he would be like, look there, look there, look there. And that if every person on this webinar said, I'm going to look at my last 3 months of emails that I received, there would be people in there to connect with. That's it. See, we say, oh, there's nobody. But in a way, we're doing global. There's nobody. But if we get down to the singular, right, we know, like, oh, right. I hadn't thought about that person. I hadn't thought about my dry cleaner. I hadn't thought about my dog walker.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, right? Especially at the beginning. Yeah. Right? Because your job right now is you just want to get some clients. You're not like, well, I have to have $10,000 clients.
Right. Exactly.
Is this a little helpful?
Yeah, it is. It's helpful. More than a little. It's just, I appreciate it. I guess I have.
Are you willing?
Oh, a person per day? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's a question, because I appreciate, Andrew, everything you're bringing forward. So right now, it's like, who else is willing to play that game? Like a person a day. Like I'm not seeing a lot of, I see some hands. Okay. Yay. Like, seriously, that's what this takes. That's part of showing up for work. So if you're, Andrew, and I mean this, like the next day you're like, ooh, what do I do? I reached out to one person. I did my one. You'd be like, all right, well, am I willing to do one more? Like, that's all this is. I mean, in a way, we make it way more complicated, right? We're like, oh, business, people. It's just human connection.
I worry that I'd be hiding behind an email, you know?
Versus what?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know, because it's like, I don't
want you to show up at my door.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
But you could call, like, Stephen McGee prefers calling people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't. Like, I remember, like, Steve Chandler would say to Michelle and I, like he'd be like, well, why don't you just call the person? And we were like, our lives, we had young children. We're not set up to be like, great, I'll just call. But if you like to call, Andrew, you can. I mean, look, people calling people is also becoming something that's going to go away.
Right. Yeah.
So if you want to be the guy who picks up the phone and calls people, that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Now, the question is, will anybody answer? Because, like, I don't answer my phone unless I know there's someone calling me at an appointed time. Now, that's just me.
Right, right. No, I'm the same way.
But there might be people who are like, oh, my God, it's Andrew. Mm-hmm. I wonder what he wants. Like, I wonder why he's calling me. Like, that can be a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
All right. So you're willing to play the game in December?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you my stats.
I would love your
if that's okay.
Yeah, no, please do. All right.
Okay.
So let's go to someone else.
I want to add to that really quickly. What I and how I think of this is we're retraining our brain, right? Because the world that we live in goes very fast, and so it's often easy to miss the opportunities that are right in front of us. Like that one where Steve Hardison and Steve Chandler would sit down and look at Steve's emails. We just miss things because we're focused on getting dinner on time for the blah, 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 that we're not seeing, oh, actually the subtext of this email is this person saying they need help with this. And so all I'm saying is that part of the process of coaching is building this new muscle of really being present and grounded to it's like honing our frequency to, oh, here's an opportunity, because we've just been missing it before. It's always been there, but we haven't seen it. And so our willingness to slow down when we're reading our emails, or really slow down and be present in our lives, that's one of the muscles that gets strengthened.
I appreciate that. That's great.
Yeah. And one thing I'll share, and then we'll go to someone else, is I one of the things I also like to think about when in this mode, like, am I willing to reach out to one person? You know, because sometimes coaches will be like, oh, but, you know, my thing is this: humans are not, remember, there are so many people that don't get reached out to ever. Like, this is a profession where we can take a stand for human connection, right? That's what we do. So in a way, you know, and Andrew, when you say to me, like, I could coach all day long, and I invite you to consider that this is equally as meaningful, because so many people don't ever get reached out to. They don't ever get acknowledged. They don't ever have anyone who wants to even know how they're doing.
Yeah. Sure.
And we can do that. Like, I don't care. Like, my thing is, in the beginning, it was not so much about getting a client, although I wanted clients. It was about how many people can I touch and connect with? Because if we do that, things will start to happen and clients will come. Mm-hmm. The one thing we know, if we're not connecting, nothing will occur.
Right.
Just nothing. There's just nothing that will happen. It's that thing. If I leave the conveyor belt, if I go away from the widgets don't get handled. Cool. Thank you, Andrew. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, let's go, Lee. Lee, I am going to unmute you and come to us and say hi.
Hi. Good morning. How are you?
Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
So tell me what would be the most helpful right now.
Well, obviously, if I get my teeth whitened, that's not going to solve all my coaching problems.
Oh, that was so funny. You said, wait, I want to share. You said, do I need to get pom-poms?
Pom-poms, blonde hair. And because my sense or my belief is that there's some magic bullet that people just know how to do this. And so you're dissolving a lot of that here. And my biggest issue, what would be most helpful, is I have experience. I do feel I'm very good at when I'm with people. You know, I work right now even with some people who can't even talk, and still a meaningful connection happens. But man, I don't even know how to, you know, share it with the world. So I practiced. I read your book last night. So I went into a nursing home today and I just started saying hello to everyone and trying to be more engaging and just start practicing that way. But that's where I'm afraid my biggest lurch will come. And it will happen when I'm driving home alone. It will happen, you know, in my bed at night, not when I'm around other people. So I effing want to get past this.
Okay. So do I have permission to ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
When you say it'll happen when I'm alone in my car or alone at night, what is the it?
Eating away.
Oh.
As if my self-esteem were sand and I'm pouring water on it. And it just dissolves.
So can I offer you something?
Well, of course.
So am I remembering Lee accurately? You've worked as a counselor for many years, yes?
Yes.
And are you're licensed? You went that whole route?
I did. I'm licensed back in Connecticut, not out here in California.
Okay. So I challenge the idea that your self-esteem is that influenced, because you have years and years and years of knowing that you've helped people.
You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right.
Because it's like, that is an incredible thing. You have this incredible body of work. And that's something a brand new coach doesn't even have, right? A brand new coach they're still in that question of, can I help someone? You already know you can help people, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's handled. Like, it's different in coaching, but we know you can help people. So now it's a matter of, and this is big, Lee, I acknowledge you for saying, I'm going to lean into coaching, because inherently in the practice of therapy, right? Therapists are not trained, counselors are not trained really to go and say hi to people. Are you there? Did we lose you? I don't see Lee. Do you, Amber or Amy?
No, it looks like she turned off her video.
Oh, okay. I'm not hearing her though. Are you? Okay. Well, I'm going to speak a little bit to this and we'll see if she comes back. Oh, there she, maybe she's coming back. All right. So for everyone to know, there she is. As a counselor, right? Counselors are taught people will just show up in your office. Like, they're not taught really ways to be like, this is a co-creation. And so that's the muscle you're going to work on.
Yeah.
And let me ask you a question about your life. Tell me do you have anything you've done in the last 5 years where you were like, I had to learn something brand new I'd never done before? I don't care if it's like making spaghetti or writing what was it?
The biggest thing was getting involved in a legal case that I knew nothing about and really required me to speak up and use my voice, which was not anything I was comfortable doing, didn't want to do it, said out loud to my spiritual teacher, I don't want anything to do with this, but it ended up, and so I had to learn a lot and I had to speak up and I was scared, but it worked out okay. So that was probably one of the biggest things in the past 5 years, as well as packing up and leaving Connecticut. You know, there's been a lot of major shifts over the past.
Big changes.
Yeah.
So first of all, bravo on the legal thing, right? Like, that's not easy. Especially I'm assuming it was like a case, like a legal case?
It was all handled outside of court, so it didn't go into testimony. But yes, there was, back and forth. There was
a disagreement.
There was a disagreement that needed professional weigh-in.
Right.
So that whole part was very new to me also.
So first of all, bravo, right? Because that's not easy stuff. And here's the good news. If you learned how to do that in the face of disagreement and probably lots of other things, this is different. Like, this is, in a way, a muscle that you can build where there's going to be greater receptivity. Because this is about you serving. this is about you connecting without attachment, right? And I say that word, right?
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, I do.
It's like, we can connect all day long without attachment. And so everybody knows what I mean by attachment is I want to connect because I want to connect and serve. I'm not serving with with a loaded give called I want you as a client. So that's where it gets tricky for most coaches. And we spend a lot of time on this in the school. Like, how do you serve without attachment?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we're all here to help build our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But if I serve enough, and I mean that, if I serve with great abandon, clients will happen. Like, really. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't really believe that, honestly. Like Steve Chandler would say to me and Michelle, just keep serving her. Keep serving. Don't rush. Like, slow down. And I'd be like, okay, whatever. All right. But you know what would happen? Inevitably, someone will be like, how do we keep doing this? How do we keep doing this? It's like, I remember the day Steve Chandler said to someone, you can build a coaching practice, a really beautiful one, without ever making a proposal. Ever. And I see your face, Lee, and I'm going to say, because what would happen is, right, especially because you already know how to help people. If you just said to, like, let's say there was someone and you were like, well, come sit with me. We'll just talk about it. And they came. And then at the end, they were like, well, now what? You were like, come back. Just come back. We'll talk again. The person would start to have changes. And then they'd go, well, how am I going to pay you? Like, I can't just keep coming. And you'd be like, oh, so let's talk about that. So to pay me, it'll be 3 months and it'll be, this is the fee. And they'll be like, great, let's do it. Because they're going to want to continue with you.
I get it. That I can do. You know what I mean? That I can do.
Right.
Versus pom-poms and like rah-rah.
By the way, pom-poms, yucky. Like, who wants pom-poms? And by the way, your own way of being, Lee, is what matters. Like, there really is no generic coach that, like, it's like your water, the water you have is unique. Nobody has the water you have. You know, sometimes I'll joke with therapists who start to move into coaching. I joke with them that, like, hey, you have way more to give. Like I would encourage you, Lee, that in conversations that you say to people, so I was a counselor for X years and now I'm a coach, because that's a powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a coach who was in the school last year who was a licensed clinical social worker. And often clients want to work with her because of that background, even though she's not doing counseling with them. So that's important. Your background is really important. So let me ask you, is this helpful? Do you feel like 5% better?
I would say probably 34% better.
I love 30%.
I think the one quote you said that really struck me is like your water, you know, what you're filling other people with. That to me really speaks to me, because I do feel I'm not a rah-rah shish kumbah. I'm like more subtle with the spiritual aspects, and not like very truth speaking. I have no problem speaking the truth, but I'm not a pushy person.
Right.
So the way
Thank
you're
God.
speaking, yeah, the way you're speaking to me resonates with how I operate.
And we have someone, I don't know if she's on the call today, but she just registered for the school, and she completed all her training, Lee, to be a licensed therapist. And one of her biggest discomforts is like, that's not who I am. I'm not used to putting myself out there. And one of the things I said to her, you know, I think Steve Chandler is one of the greatest examples of, he's almost antisocial. Like, I mean, I can say this about him because he'll laugh. He's not almost antisocial. He kind of is antisocial, but he's also like relatively socially awkward. Like his story once was that somebody who he worked with, a client, said, oh, I want you to go work with this other guy. I told him about you. You should go and help his people. So the other guy reached out to Steve and was like, let's do lunch. And they went and had lunch. And the guy called the other guy. He was like, this is not him, right? like, this is not who you're thinking should work with my people. Like, he's really like awkward and uncomfortable. So the guy called Steve and he was like, don't ever go to lunch with people, ever. Ever. Because Steve is much more, I would say, introverted socially, but that has not stopped him in the slightest by serving people outrageously. I mean, Lee, he's one of the most, he will do things and say things for people. I mean, one of the most profound things he did when Michelle, my business partner, first got ill with her diagnosis, she was really worried about money. She didn't really need to be, but she was. And he said, I'll make money for you. He said, I will make money for you. A coach can say that, right? A therapist, that would be weird, right? Like a counselor, you'd be like, I'm getting you arrested. But in coaching, we can do that. Like he said to her, you're never going to have to be worried about money. I'll make money for you.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Right? And he meant it. It wasn't just words to him. So I offer to you that all you have inside of you is perfect, right? Like the water that Lee has, you're a market of one. Did you raise your hand to connecting with one person a day?
I wrote it down. I talked to people in the facility I was just at.
Okay, but are you willing to go one person a day I'm going to reach out to?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I wrote it down for 365 days.
Wow, that would be amazing.
We'll see, but that's kind of, if I just did that.
Yeah.
And I'm so, I love talking to people, but I'm so awkward. If I set it up to do one every day, it doesn't matter if Tuesdays is an awkward mess because I'll just do it again Wednesday.
Exactly. That right there, what you just said is perfect. Right? And I want everybody to hear that. So I want to slow that down. So what Lee just said, right? She said, if I'm connecting with one person a day, it doesn't matter if Tuesdays was quote unquote awkward or hard or miserable because tomorrow is a new day. And by the way, when we feel like it's awkward, it's really, you have no idea what the impact is over there. That's about us thinking about us, right? My most awkward interactions have resulted in clients, just so you know, where I thought, oh God, they thought I was this. Oh God, that was not a good idea. I've had at least 3 people reach back out to me and be like, can we talk more? So just so you know.
So if we're connecting, making a connection every day, does that mean in the connection we are sharing that we have a coaching practice? That's my last question.
I love that. Amber, do you want to, I want Amber to talk a little bit about this. Are you willing, Amber?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think it depends. It depends on the dynamic of the relationship. In the example that Carolyn shared before, where the person was observing the teacher, it would have been weird if they were like, I watched this and I just want to praise you for the way that you showed up. By the way, I'm a coach. Like that would have been weird. And there are times when it's appropriate because it's really based on how do I know this person? Mm-hmm. Is this an acknowledgement email or is this, I ran into them when I was leaving, I don't know, Panera Bread the other day and they shared this in passing. Well, that seems important. I wonder if they know that I'm doing this now.
Right. It's contextual.
Okay.
And Lee, you can't, in a way, like this is something else I'll share, and I know a lot of people have heard this. Like Michelle would say to coaches, there's no way to mess it up. Like if someone's meant to be your client, you can't mess it up.
I like that.
I thought you might. So will you keep me posted? Like Andrew, will you give me your stats?
Uh-huh.
You don't have to. I'm not gonna.
I'll do it.
Think about it.
Yeah. No, I'll do it.
All right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Good.
Like weekly?
Sure.
Okay, that'll be fun.
All right.
We'll experiment.
All right. Good. Thank you for sharing today.
Thank you for taking my question.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to
Carolyn, can I interrupt you really quick? We had a question in the chat related to the last person sharing. So it says, Mary Jo Thatcher asked, can you as the facilitators talk a little bit more about what we say when we reach out to somebody every day?
Oh, I love that. All right, I'll speak to this a little bit, and then Amber, you may have something you want to share too. So Mary Jo, it's a good question. And for me, again, it's a little bit contextual, right? So if I'm reaching out to someone I haven't talked to in 5 years, but I know them, they've stayed and present for me, I'm going to acknowledge that. Like, I'm going to be like, Lee, we haven't talked in 5 years. And oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going on with you. And you've been on my mind. I just moved back to California and I'm starting up my life here. And I just thought of you and I wanted to reach out and connect. Like, I'd love to get on the phone or just write back and tell me what you're up to. So very human, very real. I'm not like being like, and guess what? I'm a coach and you should talk to me, right? It's contextual, especially if the context of our relationship was more friends, right? Now, let's use another one. Like, let's say I did this when I left University of Santa Monica and started coaching, right? I had a lot of people who knew me from USM, but they did not know I had left and they did not know I was a coach. So some of those people, when I would send emails, I would say, you know, dear so-and-so, how are you? We saw each other last year at the USM event. And hey, I want to know how you're doing and what you're up to. I don't know if you heard. I've left my full-time role at USM. I'm now coaching full-time. I'd love to hear what you're up to. Now, is it possible someone's going to be like, ew, yuck, she's writing to me because she's a coach and now she wants to coach me. Now, I can't control for that, right? Like, I'm not in the business of trying to read people's minds and how they think about me. It's like Mary Hulnick at the University of Santa Monica would say to people, what you think of me is none of my business, which I loved. I think it's a good life motto. So now, am I going to not send the email because they might think I want them as a client? I'm going to send it because I'm in the business of serving people, right? Like, I had someone, this happened recently. I reached out to someone who I knew, who was a coach, and she and I had been connected a number of years ago. And I wrote to her and I was like, hey, you know, I noticed you wrote this. How are you doing? Like, I saw you wrote about this. And they wrote back, yeah, I'm dealing with this and I'm dealing with that. And I can't remember whether I wrote back right away or not, but we had another exchange and she wrote to me and she said, I want to say this to you, Carolyn. I'm wondering if you only reached out to me because you wanted to, like, enroll me into something like your school. And I wrote back and I said, I reached out to you because of what I saw and because you were on my mind. And I said, and I'm in the business of serving people. So I do want to know how your business is. And that doesn't mean I want you in what I'm up to. This is what I do, though. So I share that because we don't have to apologize for what we do. Right? Like, I can't make you work with me. Like, this is what I'm up to in the world. If I can serve you, great. If not, that's fine too. But I'm not connecting with people because I see dollar signs on their face. Right? Like, you know, the cartoons, like, I'm not looking at people like they have big dollar signs for heads. That's not what I see, right? I see people who have lives. And as Steve Chandler would say, I'm in the business of helping people in their lives. And some people are going to want help and some people aren't, period. So Mary Jo, you could say anything in a way, right? You could be like, I remember, one of the things I love is when people write about something, about a conversation. So you could reach out to someone and be like, hey, we worked together 2 years ago on that project. And one of the things I never will forget is when we were up at 3 a.m. doing this and having to get it done, you never stopped making jokes and making it fun. You never stopped. I will never forget that for as long as I live. And I want you to know right now, my life has changed radically. I'm a professional coach. I want to know how you're doing. right? Like when it's real and we really are like, I will never forget that. It doesn't matter. Someone will say either, oh my God, you're a coach? I was just telling someone that I need to talk to someone. Or they'll just be like, oh, wow, that's so great. I'm doing this now. And a conversation begins, right? Just a conversation. So, Mary Jo, I hope that was helpful. You can write in the chat like, yes, it was, or if you have an additional question, let us know, okay? And Mary Jo, you, because you're already enrolled in the school, you can put your drafts up on the Facebook page and Amber or I will look at it and we'll tell you, hey, that's a beautiful draft. Or we'll say, oh my God, don't send someone the lyrics to that song as a way to introduce yourself again. I'm not saying you would, but it's just an idea that might not work. All right, Janet, let's go to you.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm so excited. So the thing that comes to mind is that I am moving out of being a consultant for the Anchorage School District here in Alaska. So I've been an instructional coach in the educational setting for a while. And I am wanting to move out on my own and grow my business. I have been also working as an intuitive since 2007. So I have a side business that I've been doing in that work, and I love it. I do it all by the phone. So I want to, I don't know if the word would be meld, but I want to grow the coaching side of my business and possibly keep doing the intuitive work. It's different, and I like both.
Yes.
So my question my question is around how to grow the coaching side of the business, and but also be really clear in my communication too about intuitive work versus coaching. Okay. So there's probably a lot of questions in that scenario, but that's where my head is. That's where I'm doing a lot of thinking and planning around.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me a little bit. So you've been an educational consultant.
Correct. Okay. That's right. So I work with teachers, administrators, sometimes around specific initiatives.
Yes.
Oftentimes, though, what it delves into is more working, of course, just straight up with the person and what maybe is getting in their way for them to be part of the initiative or to help the initiative move forward. I find that that's 90% of the conversations, right? This has to be about the person.
Right.
So I feel like that, yeah. So that it's been in the educational setting, but it's also just been in general, a lot of coaching.
Yeah. Well, how did you grow that business? Or is that, have you been in-house at a job?
No, so I'm a consultant. So the way I grew that is, after I was a university professor, I went back into the classroom and then they invited me to come be a consultant because of the work that I did in my classroom. And I worked for grants and just kept finding work. So
let's talk about that.
Okay.
When you say you kept finding work, was that through other human beings?
Well, I kept finding work in the sense that grants kept hiring me around their initiatives. But what I found, the majority of the work that no matter what my job description was, I coached.
Right.
Right.
So the good news in this is that it's not going to be that different in the context of the way one grows a coaching business is in this model is called, you're going to make a list and you're going to list 10 people, 15 people that you would love to coach, Janet, like people you already know, people you worked with in a consulting capacity or people you had contact with. And it can be anybody.
Sure.
And you're going to make a list and then you're going to draft communications to those people. And what I love about this time of year, and this is true for everybody, by the way, I think what's great about the month of December and January, and I'll respond to how you could do this, Janet. December and January is a special time of year, right? It's a special time of year because there's holidays, people are slowing down, but people are also in the mindset of thinking about their upcoming year. That's why all of you are here, right? You're like, yeah, I want to make something happen in 2020. And everybody's thinking that to some degree.
Sure.
So it's a time that's really ripe for gifting people. And when I say that, I said this to, I can't remember if it was a coach in the school or a coach that I work with, but one of the greatest things you could do right now is you could write to people and you could be like, I don't know if you know this, I'm launching my own private coaching practice. And one of the things I'm doing at this time of year is I'm writing to people who are meaningful to me, who I saw show up in a way that was impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm offering them a gift of time with me. 90
I'm just like so excited already because this is just, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is who I am. This won't be a step out of who I am. This would not come as a surprise. This kind of communication would be like, of course she is. Of course she does. Yeah.
And you can gift people. You can be like, I want to gift you time with me.
Yeah.
It's a 90-minute gift. There's no strings. We're just going to spend time together. And I'm going to gift you an experience of coaching. And we can use it to look at your next year and what you want in your life. We can use it however you want. Maybe there's a challenge you have that you want to just do some thinking about. We could use the time for anything. And then this is the key, Janet. Anytime we're going to offer this to someone, we always, in the communication, and this is for everybody, whether it's this time of year or any time of year, we want to say, and please know it's totally fine to say no.
Yeah.
It's totally fine to decline the gift. Either way, I wanted you to know I was thinking of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We want to give people permission to say no. We want to give people permission to decline and the main reason is nobody does that. Nobody gives people permission to decline. And that's why people feel like they're being sold.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They go, ew, this feels yucky. But if we say, hey, please no, it's totally fine with me if you say no. It's totally fine to decline. People relax.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't know why they're relaxing, they're like, there's no pressure.
Right. Yeah.
So you could, and I'm guessing, Janet, given the kind of work you've been involved in, you could create that list relatively easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your job right now, let me ask you a couple other questions. Are you, remind me, because I know you wrote, like, what's your goal for 2020? If you could make them any money, what would it be as a coach?
Oh, I put $75,000.
Okay. And that number is 50% believable to you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So your job, though, at least initially, is to get a couple of paying clients as a coach.
Sure.
So don't get the reason I say that is don't get too caught up yet in the fees.
Right.
The fees are going to grow. Your income is going to grow. So even if you were like, I'll coach you for 3 months for $300, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine because you're just starting out.
Right.
And
I am.
Right. And I know coaches who started out, they were like, I'm only like people who already had significant professional backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
What they would say to people, and this is something you could use, you would say like, look, you already know I've worked as a consultant for X years, right? This is if I'm talking to someone. And I'd say, so listen, because I'm growing my coaching business, I'm only doing this for a very brief time. And I'm extending a one-time special really to you of like, I will do 3 months for $300.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to have those fees again.
Right.
And it's totally fine with me if you say no.
Yeah. So can we back up for just a second and ask a question? So, I want to make what I'm hearing in my head, and I want to make sure that I'm not getting too caught up on, is that like, I wanted to shoot high, right. I wanted to shoot high, but what you just said caught my attention. You said, I'm starting out my coaching business, and I don't have a lot of, ego around that as far as like, I love this idea of like, I'll coach you for $300. I think I get that. I don't have to get big money early, and I do have a retirement. So I have some space, to really just grow this coaching business and do it in this way.
Yes.
And not get caught up in the tension or the stress around the money piece.
Right. Not yet.
Not yet. Right. But it's still showing up for work. That's not going to be, I don't think that'll be a problem for me.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, then I started to question the $75,000, that maybe that wasn't a reasonable goal. So how much energy should I put into that number or that goal? Everything else feels comfortable, but all of a sudden I have some question mark or tension around that number. And what do I do with that?
Yeah. Well, I'll share a couple things, and not just for you, because this may be you may be having a thought other people are having. So now I'm saying this to you, this is contextual, right? How long were you an educational consultant for?
Oh, I was 4 years.
Okay. And then prior to that?
I was a university professor, and then I was a classroom teacher. So I was taken care of by organizations, you know, and right for until
like,
just 4 years ago.
Right, but total, how long were you in that? 25 years, 20 years?
Oh yeah, no, 29 years. I've been in education for 29 years.
So for you, and this is contextual, right? Because you have a significant professional background.
Correct.
The amount of time you're going to spend at very low fees is probably going to be shorter.
Okay.
Because you do have a significant professional background, which means once you get up a little bit, right, and have a couple clients, my experience of most coaches is that once they get a couple clients, if they've had a pretty strong professional background, pretty quickly they're like, oh, all right, I want to go to 2,500 now.
Right.
They just, because they know what they're capable of.
Sure, right.
And your confidence will probably grow more quickly than someone who's never done any other profession besides this.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So in terms of that, the 75K, I trust your own inner guidance, Janet, to be like, that number can, like, you know, when people, so coaches will be like, oh my God, I said I want to make, you know, 80, and now I'm always like, but it's a made up number. Like,
right.
We can change it at any time. Like, there's no pressure. I like numbers and a goal because I think they can be helpful, right? Like, they're motivating. I like to play a game. You know, that's the fun part of coaching. When we're enrolling, we can play a game. Like, I'm going to reach out to one person a day.
Right.
Gamifying things makes them more fun.
Yeah.
If we're going to use a goal as a weapon, like, I know coaches, believe me, there will be coaches in the school who will want to whip themselves because they don't hit the number they said they wanted to at the beginning of the school.
Right. Yeah.
And we will be encouraging them. Like, hey, a goal is for us. If you're using it to hurt yourself, then it's not a great goal.
Yeah. That feels good.
The number, in a way, you could pull it down a little, you could increase it. I think there's value for everyone in having a number, because even if it's a little bit of a stretch, because we're showing up to work, right? This is a job. And for many of us, the money is important because we have to live our lives with it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it can be helpful. And have I said to a coach who just drives themselves crazy, I'll be like, forget it. Take the goal away of the number and just go get some clients.
Yeah.
I have coaches who don't look at what they have made until the end of the year. And then they're like, oh my God, I made 85 grand. So the more important piece is showing up for work.
Yeah.
And taking action. You know, I'm a fan of newer coaches not being blind, right? Like, watch what you're making, because what we focus on, we get more of.
Can you say more about that? I didn't quite follow that. I think I know what you mean, but I'm definitely a new coach, so I don't know that I completely followed that.
Okay, so let me give everyone an example. So when I was in my first group of coaches and Steve was my coach, and Michelle and I would be in groups with him, in small groups. He really, and this is really the model that I learned from and that I use. It's like, coaches do better when they have accountability. Coaches tend to do better when they have to submit something that says, here's what I made this month.
Sure. Because
what gets measured gets done, right? So when I was in groups with Steve, we would have to submit a report every week where we said, here's how many conversations I had, here's how many invitations I made, and here's what my billings were. Now, can you imagine, like, I would be like, oh no, I have all zeros. This is terrible. But I got to really learn, like, wow, what am I making that mean? What does that mean? Like, those numbers don't mean anything about who I am. No. They're a moment in time. But they were helpful. Like, I always made more money. So that's like why in the school that we have, coaches have to submit a report every month.
Right. It's
and they
motivating.
Have to say, here's how many conversations, here are how many billings, and here's a question. And Amber or I respond. And the thing we're always reminding coaches is, hey, this is about you growing and learning. Like, if a coach grows and learns, but they don't hit their goal in the school, but they've made progress, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
And if a coach repeatedly is showing up with no action, then I can say to them, hey, what's happening?
Right.
Because you're not taking action, and nothing's going to occur that way. And if you said you want to make 50K in 6 months, I want to help you do that. So that's what I mean. That, and really that's why coaches, one of the most important things, right, is like, as coaches, if we're going to take a stand in this profession, it means we have to be willing to get coached ourselves.
Oh yeah, right. Of course.
We cannot, like, let's just like, I know I say this ad nauseum, but there are 8 million coaches out there, and they're all like, why is this not working? Why is this not happening? And I'll be like, well, have you ever hired your own coach and spent money? But no, but why is this not working? Why is this not happening? And I'm always like, do you think there could be a interesting integrity issue? Like, you want people to pay you, but you're not willing? Do you think that could have something to do with the lack of results? And there are people who are still like, no, like, I don't know what you mean. Like, what's the problem? I'm not going to spend money on that. That's crazy. Like, that's ridiculous. I had a coach who was like, it's a luxury to get a coach. And I was like, so just know that thinking will not bring clients your way, because if you're running it's a luxury, everyone you sit with is going to be like, it's going to leak out in everything you do.
Yeah.
I don't consider getting a coach or being coached a luxury. For me, it's a requirement in my business. I just sent out a video where Michelle talked about that, right? She was like, I have 3 requirements for me. I have like my computer, my phone, and my coach. The requirements for this business is a low bar.
Right.
And she said, not for me though. Not for me. I have a coach and I invest in myself. That's a requirement. Is this helpful?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is very much so.
So you're going to make your list of 10 to 15?
Yeah, I'm excited. I really am excited. It's the timing couldn't be better, because I am, literally moving out of my office today, and people are reaching out to me already. Perfect. So, if I respond to them and then add to that list of invitations and conversations, and yeah, like I said, it won't seem like a surprise, I don't think, because it's pretty much how I operate anyway. And so that feels good to be able to be true to me. So I really appreciate that. It does feel
perfect.
Good.
I mean, really, the timing couldn't be better. And are all these people in your community in Alaska? Like, are most of the people?
Well, that's one community. Yes. Right now. I mean, I'm just thinking about the education community and starting with that. And it would be a more natural, seamless transition, because they're used to the coaching me.
Yes.
Then what I would do is really sit down and think about how would I approach the people I've worked with the other side of me, the intuitive side of me.
Beautiful.
And so that would be a different communication, a different reach out, a different list, a different approach.
You got it.
I'm going to start with the educational and then think about how do I reach out to the people that I worked with in a different capacity.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I got plenty of work to do.
That's perfect. And Janet, if you want assistance, once you start to reach out to your to the consulting community, but then you're like, okay, how am I going to craft a communication to the intuitive community?
Yeah.
Reach out to Amber and I.
Okay.
So you have my email, and one of us will assist you, because Amber has a lot of experience with like helping coaches like lean into different communities and how to navigate that.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's great. Well, and I'm really hoping to see you in school too. So.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
And stay warm.
I got 30 years of experience. There's no bad weather, just bad gear. So
that's my favorite line.
Yeah, perfect. There you go.
All right.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. I see some other hands raised. Sarah, I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to have Amber. Will you work with Sarah? Okay.
Hey, Amber. Hey, Carolyn.
Hi, Sarah.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for all the amazing help so far. I've been taking furious notes, and I'm really excited because I am a new coach and just starting up my business, and I'm already running into a lot. So I'll try to keep it short. One of the things is fear of failure. Like I've read The Prosperous Coach and been talking to a lot of coaches, and everyone's like, don't be afraid to fail. It's okay. Failure is good. But I'm like, I don't even know what that means, because I've been so afraid of it that I can't even think of a time in my life where I had like a major failure, because I never pushed myself to the limit where I would fail. I was always playing it very safe of like, okay, I know I can do this, so I'm going to do it. So I guess if there's any advice that you would have around stepping into that and like doing things that are uncomfortable, and knowing that and I know we already talked about this a little bit, but like the uncomfortable feeling that comes from stepping into doing something that you know you're supposed to do versus something that doesn't really feel right in your body, like intuitively. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Will you speak a little bit more about that distinction? What you
So
just said?
Like for example, choosing like a coaching certification program. It's like, there's some that I'm like, oh, I want to do this, but and I don't know if it's my intuition saying no, or if it's my fear of moving forward and like taking that leap is saying no. It's hard to tell.
Got it.
What type of fear it is.
Sure. And where are you? Are you working? Tell me a little bit more about your practice right now, Sarah. Are you working with paid clients yet? Are you in a certification program? Where are you?
So I have 2 clients, but neither of them pay me yet. That's what I'm working on right now.
That's a fantastic start. Truly.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what draws you to being a coach?
I mean, I feel like I've been coaching my whole life, but I just love serving and helping people tap into their own inner guidance and helping them just remove roadblocks and accomplish their goals so they can live their best life.
Beautiful. So the question that it sounds like the question that you have is around, like, is it my intuition or is it fear? Like, which voice am I going to listen to? Is that accurate? Or how do I know which voice to listen to?
Yeah, like is it the fear of the unknown, or the fear of the uncomfortable feeling of stepping into something new, or is it the fear of or is it my intuition being like, no, you shouldn't do this?
Great. Do you have coaches or mentors that you've worked with in your life?
Yeah. I have a mentor right now.
Beautiful. Do you talk about this with them?
I haven't asked her this specific question, but I mean, we have talked about it before.
Tell me an accomplishment that you've had in your life, like something that you're proud of.
Moving to California.
Where did you live prior?
Maryland.
Maryland.
It's a big move.
Yeah, it is a big move. Were there fears that came up around moving to California?
Not really. It was just like
no fears.
It was just like a knowing, like I knew, like my whole body was like, yes, this is it.
Great.
So the fear didn't settle in until probably like a few months after I moved here. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is really different and new and scary. But the whole process of moving out here, like, had absolutely no fear.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. When you think about being a coach, do you have fear that comes up?
Yeah.
But you do. Okay. And yet you're still doing it.
Yes.
When is a time in your life where you've had fear come up? Besides not coaching, like I'm thinking where I'm going is where I want to go with you, Sarah, is I'm trying to see if you can touch point in to the voice of your intuition versus the ego, fear, discomfort part.
Okay, so what was the question?
The question is, like, I want to know, has there been a time in your life where you weren't sure about something and either you did it or you didn't do it?
I don't know.
So I'll share a story with you. It's okay. Because tell me if this is accurate. My sense of you, Sarah, is that, because you've said it, right? You've played it safe. My sense of you is you're probably very good at a lot of things.
Yeah.
What's happening inside?
I just feel really vulnerable right now because there's a lot of people on this call.
Sure. Yeah, it's okay.
I acknowledge you, Sarah, for just being here and being willing.
Completely.
It takes courage.
Completely. It's courageous to stand up, to ask for help, to raise your voice, to be seen in this way. And by the way, you aren't alone.
And by the way, it's also really courageous to say, I don't know. And by the way, this is how all of our clients feel. They all don't know, and they don't want to say so. So bravo to you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I share a story with you, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to sound like a really silly story. But I have definitely in my life have had a drive of perfection. In like making a mistake. It wasn't that it wasn't like somebody was like, you must be perfect all the time. Somehow I really took that on of like, I have to seem like I know what I'm doing. Making a mistake is terrible, right? I've got to have my shit together. It just seemed like that was what the world, like I was more lovable that way. That's the story that I had inside. Mm-hmm. And so my now husband, he was then boyfriend, we went to Paris for the first time. I'd never been there. And I was like, I'm at these dinners and all these French people are speaking their language. And I was like, oh my God, I want to learn this language. Like I want to be able to come here and speak this language. I had never learned another language ever. I had no idea how hard it would be. Anyway, so I take the steps, I get a tutor. And the very first day I sit down with the tutor, he gives me a book in French and he says, I want you to read that paragraph. And like, I started to sweat. I was like, what do you mean you want me to read? I don't speak French. I certainly don't read French. Like, I'm going to sound like an idiot. And within the time frame of like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm going to embarrass myself. He's going to think I'm like I'm from West Virginia, like the most West Virginia French speaker there could ever possibly be. But here's what happened. I was really, in that moment, I was like, I want to learn how to speak French. I do not know how to do that. This is the person that I've hired to help me with this. They must know how to help me. They must know what they're doing. So I just like vomited out the worst French ever imaginable, I'm certain. He probably had whatever thoughts he did about the way I was pronouncing things. And that was the initial stage of how I started to learn to let go of this facade of needing to be perfect. Like I let myself be really vulnerable, which is what you're doing right now on this call, which is really beautiful. So I share that story with you because in some regards, I'm not going to say it sounds like your definition of failure is like what would be your definition of failure if you had to define it?
I guess like I'll just go to my worst fear of like worst case scenario is because I just quit my job. So is that I make no money and then I have to go back to a corporate job that I hate or like move out of my apartment because I can't afford rent. Those worst case fears.
Yep.
So raise your hand if you've ever had those thoughts.
Okay, are you on gallery view, Sarah? Can you see people's hands raised?
Switched over, yeah.
Okay, just making sure we've all had those, Sarah, so you're not alone.
Absolutely not. And so because see, there's sort of like the end result failure of like the grand scale failure, right? And that's the hook in. Like our ego is so good at like being like, if you do this, this will happen. It's like, it hooks us in and we're like, we better stay small. We better not put it out there too much because I'll lose everything. And I'm going to speak to two different kinds of failures. That's not the failure that I'm talking about right now. The failure that I'm talking about right now is because it would be perceived like that French teacher could have looked at me and been like, you are a failure at speaking French. But he would have been right, because I was. I had no idea how to, like, the audacity that I would be able to do something that I've never learned how to do is crazy pants. But that's what was going on inside of me. Like, I should already know how to do this. And so for you, when people are saying to you around like be ready for failure, you're going to fail a lot, or whatever they're saying, how my encouragement is, if you can reframe it, Sarah, around, like I've said this before, mistakes are the way. Experience is the greatest teacher. I got a speeding ticket once and I had to pay the fine and go to like traffic school. It was I was like, I will not speed again because it was painful for me. Right. And so that's one of the beautiful things about like stretching ourselves, because you will be required to stretch as a coach. You're going to send someone an invite to a conversation and you will not hear back from them. And it can be easy to start to make that mean all these things about us when it doesn't. You know, like I remember a story that's present right now. I just, when I was first starting, we were just talking about, like, I think Mary Jo asked the question around how do we reach out to someone? Well, I graduated from college. I don't know, maybe it was 10 or 15 years. It was like 10 or 15 years that I had talked to this person, been in this person's life. And I just sent them I totally spammed them. I sent them a Facebook message that was like, I'm a coach now. Do you want to have a conversation? It was awful. Like I shrink when I think about that. And it was the greatest learning, because I learned, oh, that's like, I went for it way too soon. But how I learned that was through the feeling of the discomfort around, like, oh, this isn't the way to do it. That will help inform the way to do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm sharing this with you to give you a different way to relate to failure, because there's no way you're going to do this perfectly. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah, I just really want to slow down and echo everything Amber said, to really encourage you to really, like, remember I said at the beginning of the call, let's make getting messy popular. That for you, this is really going to be about giving yourself permission to be messy. This is about giving yourself permission to enjoy mistakes, to be like, look at me making all these mistakes. This is fabulous. To really be like, you know what? I am not going to be beholden anymore to some idea that there's any kind of value in trying to do this right. That in a way, when we're in the fear, and fear is just a part of this profession, it's just, I mean, like, think about it. Like I always say to people, when people are afraid, which is very human, right? Fear is part of the human experience. I say, look, here's the good news. We're not all studying to be open heart surgeons. Now that's some stuff where I don't want to be making a mistake, right? Like I don't want my learning trajectory to be, oops, you died. Ooh, sorry, on me. I was just learning. I'm sorry. That's like a mistake that would be a lot to work with inside.
Right.
That doesn't exist in this business, Sarah. That I want you to know, like, the most challenging thing you're going to have is what Amber talked about. Like, ooh, I didn't do that well. Okay, good for me, because you're going to be coaching people who want to be supported in making peace with the fact that they're not going to do everything well, right? That life includes mistakes, and that mistakes are for learning. They're not for beating ourselves up. And the fear that you have, the grand fear called, oh my God, what if I don't make any money? And oh my God, what if I have to go back to a corporate job that I hate? If that's the worst fear, which I get, like, let me ask you a question. I want you to really slow down and ask inside. If that happened, here's the question to ask inside. Could I handle it?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't even hesitate. You didn't even hesitate. So it doesn't mean that's going to happen, but we know, right? You heard yourself say, yeah, I can handle it. And I want you to know, like, one of my favorite expressions, and I facilitate a leadership program called the Leadership Experience. And one of my favorite expressions that they say to all the leaders that go through this is this: do it afraid. Do it afraid. That being afraid is, we're not like that being afraid. We can be compassionate with our fear, but doing the way that fear diminishes is doing what we're afraid of. That's how fear diminishes, that we do what we're afraid of. And Sarah, I believe in you, right? Like, anyone who has the courage to move from Maryland to California and trust their own inner guidance and deal with whatever came after when you got afraid can handle this. Mm-hmm. I really believe that, right? That you can handle the discomfort of the fear, and you can take that fear by the hand and go, we're going to do it anyway. Because I need to find out if this is the right profession for me, right? You need to find out. You need to get some paying clients so that you can go, I want to keep doing this, or no, I don't. So is this helpful?
It's really helpful. And I appreciate you both just taking the time and holding the space for me. So I really do appreciate all that. I feel like more empowered and just encouraged. And I was also looking at the chat, and people saying that they were also in the same boat was super helpful. So thank you for everyone.
I would bet every single person on this call hasn't just been in the same boat. They're in it right now, right? They're using their paddles to be like, God help me, get me out of here. And the fear is the way. And I'm going to share about a book. Someone wrote on the chat about mindset. I think one of the greatest books also is called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. It's a very small book. It's an easy read. You could all read it in one day. And the reason I love it so much is because he talks about this. Resistance is like gravity. We all experience it, right? Not wanting to show up for work, super common. Not wanting to reach out with an email, super common. And Stephen Pressfield, who he talks about it in the context of writing. Nobody who's a writer wants to show up and write every day. Nobody. And he talks about this better than anybody I know about what is required to turn pro. And I just applaud all of you. Like, you're here, you put a number out there, you did the pre-work, you're here taking notes. Like, there's so much available. And I also want to remind everybody that our fears are first and foremost about us. And that really what we're here to do is to serve others. So Sarah and everyone, like, the more we can say, I'm afraid, and that's human, and have compassion for ourselves, and then go out and serve people, because there are people who are waiting for the water you have. They're afraid and they're alone. So this is the best profession on the planet. I stand by it. I will stand by it as coaches continue to come into the profession. I will never be someone who's like, oh my God, another person coming in this profession. It's like, it's a fantastic profession. And I just invite you all to use today immediately. Don't wait, right? Start today with your one person. Start tomorrow. The faster you put into action something you're going to do, the faster it becomes part of that muscle and part of that muscle fiber. So feel free to write to me. Let me know how it's going. Share your stats. If there's something Amber and I can do to help you, we're here to help you. And anybody who has not yet received the ebook that I wrote for coaches, some of you already have, but if you haven't, if you're new and you haven't gotten it yet, write to me and like find us and we'll get it to you, because it's fabulous and you can literally use it as a Bible. Anything else you want to say, Amber?
I just want to acknowledge each of you. And I'm going to speak, Sarah, directly to you for a minute. you showed up today on this call. You faced a fear by being vulnerable. You were seen. It's the same. Everything that you did today on this call is the exact same for growing a coaching practice.
Yep.
It's showing up.
Absolutely. So remember your numbers, people. 5% action every day. And just know that we're rooting for you. I am rooting for you. I root for this profession every day. And I'm sending you all lots of love. Take care.
Bye.